Okay, I get it. The surrogacy process is expensive and you want to offset as much of the cost as possible, right? So one of the questions you may be asking is, can I put a surrogate on my insurance? Well, let's talk about it. Hello, I'm Corlandos Scott, a surrogacy attorney in Los Angeles who's dedicated his practice to helping people grow their families through assisted reproductive technologies like surrogacy. And in today's episode, we'll take a look at who is qualified to be on your insurance. We're going to discuss whether you can put a surrogate on your insurance, and we'll talk about how to get insurance in place for your surrogate. So let's jump in. Well, I wish there were an easy way for me to answer this question. Let's be honest. I mean, health insurance in the US is sort of a tough ball of wax. I mean, it's complicated enough as it is. Now you add surrogacy to the mix and it becomes a whole other beast. So who is qualified to go on your insurance? Well, the rule of insurance is that in order to add someone to your health insurance policy, you must first show an insurable interest. Now, that generally limits the people you can add onto your policy to immediate relatives like your spouse or your children or your dependent parents or grandchildren. And this even excludes a significant other, like a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Think about it. Since there's no legal financial obligation between yourself and your girlfriend or boyfriend, they cannot be added to most health insurance policies. The exception to this might be if you live in a state which recognizes common law marriage or domestic partnerships, but that's still a stretch. Now, an old rule of thumb was if you can count someone as a dependent on your taxes, then they should be eligible to be on your insurance plan. So that gets us to the question of whether your surrogate can go on your insurance. I mean, after all, you certainly have an insurable interest in her, right? I mean, she's carrying your baby, for crying out loud. You even have financial obligations to the surrogate. Well, unfortunately, guys, the answer is no. This is something that most all insurance companies have chosen to specifically exclude from their coverage. So there's a lot of insurance companies that have this very well spelled out, that they say they'll cover you, but you can't bring a surrogate into your policy simply because she's carrying your child. Now, if you were pregnant, we would cover you. Also, to the issue of insurable interest, insurance companies look at it like this. You may be paying for all of the surrogacy-related expenses, but the surrogate is not one of your dependents. One of the typical requirements for surrogates is that they need to be financially stable, and being a surrogate can't be their sole source of income. So that further confirms that she's not your dependent, because to be a surrogate, she literally can't be dependent on you. So what are your options? How do you find insurance, or how do you deal with this whole insurance issue for surrogates? Well, you could find a surrogate who already has insurance in place that will cover her prenatal care and not exclude her on the basis that she's a surrogate. In fact, one of the deciding factors for many people choosing which surrogate to work with is whether that surrogate already has an insurance policy in place. Now, let's say you find a surrogate who's already insured. Yay for you, first of all. Well, the analysis shouldn't stop there because we're not out of the woods yet. Your next research should include whether her existing policy permits or excludes coverage during a surrogacy arrangement. Now, some policies take this position. We'll cover our policyholders when they are pregnant, regardless of whether they're carrying the baby for themselves or they're carrying the baby for someone else. And none of the typical policy terms will change. Well, that's good for them. I like those types of policies. But some policies say, we will not cover our policyholder if she's carrying a pregnancy for someone else, period. Of course, I do not like those policies as a surrogacy attorney. And still yet, other policies include what I consider to be a rather ridiculous little that caveat. They say something along these lines. We'll cover our policyholder during the surrogacy pregnancy, but if she's being compensated for the surrogacy, then we want more money. In fact, we'll take at least 30% of whatever she's receiving as compensation. I truly despise these surrogacy liens, as they're called, that some insurance companies put into effect. If you couldn't tell by my whole gritting my teeth and stuff. Yeah. I mean, here's the way I see it. It takes an already expensive process and makes it even more expensive. I mean, come on, insurance company. You're getting your monthly premium anyway, and you cover her for nothing additional if the baby was hers. So how is it any more skin off your back? Well, the way that they get away with this is they look at surrogacy compensation as reimbursement for or being made whole for some kind of loss. So they look at it the same way you would look at if you got into a vehicle accident and you went to the doctor to, check out your injuries after the accident, and ultimately the other driver had to pay for your medical bills. Well, in that case, if your insurance company had already paid your medical bills, then a court says the other driver had to pay those medical bills. Well, the doctor doesn't get paid twice. What happens is the money goes back to the insurance company because they fronted, paying for those bills for you. So in an arrangement like this, the insurance company is saying, oh, the surrogate has been injured and the intended parents are paying her, but since we already paid her medical bills, they need to pay us also. It's really crazy, and I think that it should be done away with. And thankfully, there's some attorneys, at least in California, that are working to make sure that goes away. Now, if you can't find a surrogate who already has a policy in place, or if you fall in love with a surrogate who doesn't have a policy, you still have some options. You can purchase a policy that you get specifically for the surrogacy arrangement. Now, if it's close in time to the open enrollment period, then you can opt to find an ACA marketplace policy or even an off-exchange policy that fits the bill. You can also explore whether the surrogate has access to an employer plan. There's also the option of purchasing a surrogacy-specific plan called a surrogate maternity contractual liability insurance plan. That's a mouthful, but this policy is underwritten by Lloyd's of London, and its function is similar to a typical medical plan, but it's not exactly medical insurance like in general. It's a comprehensive plan in the sense that it covers the intended parents' contractual obligations to pay for the surrogate's medical expenses. However, only pregnancy-related expenses are covered. Any medical procedures not related to the pregnancy are excluded. And also, the IVF treatment and the procedures around IVF, they're excluded as well. So we're just talking about the surrogacy pregnancy. But recall, we drafted an extensive surrogacy contract that went into great detail about how the surrogate has no rights or responsibilities with respect to your child. So for that reason alone, your baby cannot be placed on the surrogate's insurance policy that you're paying for. Now, before I direct you to a few resources for insurance, hit that like button so that YouTube knows to share this thing with more people. And while you're at it, just go ahead and subscribe. It's no big deal. Just click. It's just a little clicky click. Click it. If you subscribe, that way you won't miss out on any of my upcoming videos. And if you know someone who's looking to grow their family through surrogacy, then be a hero. Share the video with them. So let's talk about where to go to find surrogacy-friendly insurance. Now, some of my favorite sources of information for all things concerning the intersection of health insurance and surrogacy are International Fertility Insurance and Art Risk Financial. These professionals, they specialize in helping hopeful parents find the best policies to cover themselves and their surrogates. So if you're starting a surrogacy journey, it pays to have an insurance agency like these help you tackle these complicated issues of open enrollment, qualifying life events, ACA plans, all that type of stuff. And if none of what I just said makes any sense to you, then you, definitely need to seek the help of an insurance company with the details and deals with, all the specific surrogacy insurance stuff, for sure. Well, if you're considering embarking on a surrogacy journey, I have something for you. It's a free gift. It's called the Surrogacy Roadmap, and it walks you through each step of the surrogacy process from beginning to end. Now, if you want it, just click the link below and you'll be taken to the surrogacyroadmap.com. All you got to do is click it, get your hands on that free resource, and I'll see you in the next episode.